Now, David Brock is a well-known Hillary Clinton supporter. He runs a pro-Clinton super PAC, and of course, he's been a surrogate for her for a while as well. Now, he's going to go on CNN to discuss the primary with Brian Stelter and also former MSNBC host Ed Schultz. Now, Ed Schultz is, of course, a huge Bernie Sanders supporter. So now, this discussion is actually very, very interesting, and it gets a little heated. But first, Stelter, before we get to that, Stelter is going to ask David Brock about what happened in South Carolina. Let's take a look.
David, what do you make of what Ed is saying here about South Carolina not being significant to the grand scheme of things?
Oh, I don't agree. I think, look, in the first 4 contests, Secretary Clinton has won 3 all over the country. And I think this was significant. It's significant going into Super Tuesday. And the reason it's significant is I think that Secretary's inclusive message about breaking barriers, those final barriers, about cementing President Obama's legacy, building on it, making sure America works for everybody, it's resonating now. And I think for Democrats, the focus after Super Tuesday, I mean, I think she's going to have some decisive victories there, is going to be a focus on what's going on the other side of the aisle. Now, Senator Sanders has demonstrated some real appeal, as Ed said, and he deserves congratulations for that. But I think it's a more narrow appeal, and that's what we're seeing as we get into these states that are bigger, they're more diverse, more representative of the whole electorate.
Okay. Now, wait a minute here. More diverse. Okay, absolutely, right? But South Carolina, even though it's incredibly diverse, isn't actually a good representation of the U.S. electorate. In fact, 61% of the total electorate in South Carolina is African American. Based on numbers alone, and this is just math here, you can't really make the case that this one state is representative of the entire American electorate. The math and the numbers, they don't reflect that. Remember, African Americans make up over half the electorate in South Carolina. You don't see that in the rest of the nation, at least not right now. So it's not exactly representative. Diverse, look, I like diversity. I think diversity is a great thing. But to say that that state represents most of America is incorrect. It's just a fact. As to his appeal, well, his message is one that massive majorities of Americans actually agree with. For one, he wants to expand Social Security. That's not an issue Hillary Clinton took up until just lately, raising the minimum wage. Not just raising it, but getting to a living wage. Now, Hillary Clinton had been in favor of a $12 minimum wage. Now she says, well, I would support a $15. Okay. Now, what about the idea of getting money out of politics? Well, Senator Sanders has been for that for a very, very long time. Now Hillary Clinton has been talking about it. Okay. Look, those issues are his appeal. And what you have to ask is, what is his vision versus Hillary Clinton's vision? Well, it is a political revolution versus the continuation of President Obama's policies. Now, his policies, some of them good, some of them not so good, are the status quo. What you have, or what you will have, with Hillary Clinton is 5% change on the outside and continuity on the inside. Now, I've broken down just recently some of the exit polling from South Carolina, saying that 72% of the electorate in that state want to continue Obama's status quo policies. However, national polling showed that 54% of Americans strongly would favor a political revolution to redistribute wealth from the rich to the middle class. That is anything but the status quo. You can see the difference from one state versus the nation. Now, with that said, Ed Schultz is now going to respond to David Brock, and it's going to be fun. Let's watch.
Hold the phone. Not so fast on the Democratic side. We got a lot of primaries and a lot of caucuses left here. Super Tuesday is going to tell an awful lot, and so is March 15th when it comes to Florida and Ohio. I mean, those are really the wheelhouse of what Bernie Sanders has been talking about. And Hillary Clinton is vulnerable in all of those states. And so I think that Bernie is in a great position right now. It's not like he's been rolled in all of these contests. He certainly won New Hampshire. He was expected to lose South Carolina, 700 votes in Nevada, and 0.2% in Iowa, and they haven't even officially called it yet. So this media narrative that it's all about Clinton, I think, is wrong. Now, if Clinton starts picking off Minnesota and Colorado, then you've got something to look at. But I think this entire superdelegate conversation is getting more attention than it's ever gotten. Since when do the superdelegates tell the people how to vote? The superdelegates could be making a serious mistake right now, putting themselves ahead of the popular vote. Bernie Sanders is going to be very solid in all of these states.
He's right, of course. Look, the media has essentially called it for Clinton already. I mean, especially after South Carolina. Numerous political pieces saying that Bernie Sanders is done. Salon articles. Bernie Sanders he's got no path forward. He even got 538. Nate Silver, who was, I mean, he's had a great track record, but he hasn't exactly been the greatest in this election cycle. Now, he's got to recalculate, and some of his predictions are on. Some of his predictions are off. He just tries to use the math, and he tries to do the best that he can, and sometimes he can't always get it right. Now, but the media, however, as I said, they've been calling it for Hillary Clinton, despite the primaries being 4% done. There's still a lot of primary to go. Now, as for the superdelegates, he brings out a great point. They've essentially put their thumb on the scale in favor of Secretary Clinton, when, of course, the superdelegates are supposed to be subject to the will of the people. Now, if the superdelegates go to Hillary Clinton, if she wins more delegates due to the popular vote, that's great. That's democracy. That's what's supposed to happen. Congratulations, right? However, if the superdelegates side with Hillary Clinton, if Sanders ends up winning more delegates, and he certainly still can, and they do that enough to swing the primary in her favor, all hell's going to break loose. That is undemocratic. That is not what you're supposed to do. That is not your role as a superdelegate. Now, with that said, Brock is actually going to push back against Big Ed, and this is where it gets really fun. Watch.
I think Ed is right that this race is far from over. Secretary Clinton's going to work to get every vote in these Democratic primaries. But look, I think Senator Sanders being poorly advised, I think he made a big mistake this last week. After New Hampshire, he said we're going to have a debate on the issues and we're going to stay positive. And you saw a relentless negative barrage from the candidate, from his surrogates, present company accepted, but you had Cornel West out there talking about Hillary as having no morality and being a Wall Street corporatist, and Senator Sanders not being called on the carpet to say whether he agrees with that or not. And I think Tad Devine and others are making a big mistake for the Sanders brand here. And so let's let the race go on, but let's make it more positive. Let's make it more constructive. Let's
David,
not do the Republicans' work.
You're doing the Republicans' work you've done against Bernie Sanders. What about the super PAC work you've done
let's talk about it. I'm happy to talk about it.
Let's talk about the hedge funds on Wall Street.
We are
let's talk
vetting
about
the
the
candidate.
hedge funds on Wall Street that support fracking, and Hillary Clinton says. And let's talk about the trade deal that she's turned on.
This is exactly what I'm talking about.
All right.
We're doing the Republicans'
So she doesn't take Wall Street money?
Right out of the Republican playbook.
Does she take
the Republicans
Wall Street
are spending
money?
Millions of dollars with that message.
Where does she stand on the
So did
Trans-Pacific
President
Partnership?
Obama.
Where does she stand on Keystone? These are reverses after Bernie got into the race, and you know that.
Right. Look,
how come Hillary Clinton isn't picking up the phone and talking to these senators saying, no, you can't, because I'm going to make a point here. If Hillary Clinton is against the Trans-Pacific Partnership, why isn't she lobbying against it in the United States Senate? Why doesn't she pick up all the phones and call these people in the Senate who are endorsing her and say, you know what, we have to defeat TPP. This is bad for American jobs. She's not doing that. The only reason why she's against it is because Bernie's against it.
Oh, damn. Hey, can I speak, Ed? Can I speak? Yeah, no. I'm going to make a point. Damn, he got shut down. All right. So, look, he said, if you could catch that, you're doing the Republicans' work for them. You're doing the Republicans' work for them. Well, since when is pointing out the obvious issues like getting money from Wall Street doing the Republicans' work for them? I don't know if you noticed, but Republicans love Wall Street, and they love getting money from Wall Street, with, of course, the exception of Donald Trump. So, oh, I see. Okay. Well, if Hillary Clinton goes against Trump, who is, look, everybody's saying he's going to be the nominee. He's most likely to be to get the nomination. And if he does, and she goes against Trump with all that Wall Street money, well, he's going to Donkey Kong her in the head over that, over her ties from Wall Street. He's going to paint her as the national symbol of crony capitalism, of everything that's gone wrong. Now, Donald Trump himself is also the poster child for crony capitalism, right? He went bankrupt 4 times. And he's like, I don't know, I used the system as it was written. Yeah. Because people who are powerful like you gave themselves an advantage over regular people. That's the whole problem. That's what people hate. That's the crony capitalism system that we're pushing back against. Now, Hillary Clinton, well, she says she's not in favor of that system, but she has gotten a lot of money from, as I said, large corporations and Wall Street, and she's against reinstating Glass-Steagall. Now, Glass-Steagall wouldn't have stopped the crash of 2008. But remember, Glass-Steagall broke down the wall between investment and commercial banking, meaning that they can take your money, a bank, and they can use that to gamble on subprime mortgages, for example. They can gamble with it on Wall Street. Your depositor money. Why would you be in favor of that at all? That's a bank taking your money and then making lots and lots of profit off it. And if they don't, if they actually lose that money and the bank goes down, well, you're screwed. You're not going to get that back. It's ridiculous. Why would you ever be against that? That's an issue. That's a legitimate issue that you bring up. But apparently if you do that, you're doing the Republicans' work for them. It's an artful smear. Give me a break. Now, back onto Trump and Hillary, right? Remember, in head-to-head matchups, Bernie crushes Trump. Hillary Clinton barely squeaks by like 1%. And that assumes that nothing new comes out about her or nothing changes overall. I'm just saying. But the whole point is, if being honest about her record of support from Wall Street and large corporations ends up hurting her, well, maybe that means that she's not the right candidate, at least when it comes to this election cycle. Here's the other thing. She hasn't been consistent. Remember, she's a politician, and she has, to her, I guess you could say to her credit, a lot of people are giving her credit for it anyway, she's moved to the issues, to the left on issues, for example, like TPP. Now, she's doing that because that's what she does. She triangulates to that position. She goes to what's more politically expedient. That is the Clinton brand. That's what they built. That's what they do. That's what made Bill Clinton so popular, because he went with the public. He went with public opinion. But he had to make sure that he had public opinion first. Okay, we got a poll, we got a focus test, we got to do this, or a focus group, and then we're going to go. I stick my finger to the wind, and wherever the people are going, we're going to go that way. When you do that, you always side with the people, well, you're going to be very popular. And that's exactly what Bill Clinton did. They triangulate. Now, what's different now than back then was that the political atmosphere has changed. There are a lot of people out there that are looking for consistency and honesty from their politicians, not political triangulation. Not only that, but we also have something called the internet. Instead of only having mainstream corporate media, right? So now what that means is that we can find out if a politician has switched their positions on 1 or maybe 3 issues in a short amount of time. You see, people don't like being played. People don't like being used. Now, if somebody switches their position in order to appear more palatable, right? If a politician challenges you from one side and you pull up right beside that issue, when before you hadn't supported that issue, we can find that out. We can Google, right? We can see that. And we can see whether or not you're just going with the polls. And people don't like that when you do. You see, that's why Clinton is actually having a harder time with young people. Now, she was asked during a town hall why she didn't do well with young people. She couldn't understand. She's like, I don't know. I don't know why young people don't like me, but I'm fighting for you, damn it. I'm going to fight for you. No, well, here's the thing. You don't get it. They've looked, they've done the research. They said, well, you flip-flopped on this issue, so we don't trust that you're going to have our issues at heart, especially compared to Bernie Sanders. So once again, that's why she does not do well with younger people. Now, older people in general, and look, I realize that I get in trouble sometimes for broad brushing, from some of my older viewers, and I do apologize for that, right? But once again, I want to point out that I'm talking in general, and this is backed up by the numbers. There are a lot of older people who still rely on mainstream corporate media. And if you've noticed, the media, the mainstream media, the CNNs and MSNBCs of the world, have been actually very dismissive and sometimes outright hostile to Senator Sanders. In fact, I want to go to show you an example, right? Or tell you an example. MSNBC recently had a town hall, right? A special where Chris Matthews spent an entire hour yelling at Bernie Sanders. Look, Chris Matthews. Look, I don't have any problem with a host or an interviewer asking tough questions. But Chris Matthews has a bias, an obvious bias. His wife is running for Senate and she supports Hillary Clinton. She's actually getting a lot of help from the Clintons. You want to have Chris Matthews do an impartial interview of Bernie Sanders? There's no impartiality there. As I said, he spent the entire time yelling at him. You call that news? You call that news? You think that that's fair? It's not fair at all. It's not fair at all. Now, I got another one, the red baiting from Anderson Cooper, if you remember from the town halls. The socialism, it's the socialism. But you're a socialist. How can you say, how can you actually win an election as a socialist? They forget democratic socialists, but anyway. There's also the right-wing framing from, for example, Chris Cuomo. When it came to taxes, you're going to punish rich people. Why are you punishing rich people by wanting to tax us more? Well, because, first of all, you have all the wealth. That's why. You got to go where the money's at. And all the money is concentrated at the top, which is where it has been going since fucking Reagan. So yeah, you got to go where the money's at. And also talking about free healthcare, tuition-free college. And there was that one question, something about puppies with, riding on rainbows with winning lotto tickets attached to their collars. What the fuck kind of question framing is that? To explain one of Sanders' plans. And to give you context on that question, right? There are countries all over the world that have done these specific policies, and they're actually better for it. They're happier. They have better outcomes. Now, if we, the most powerful, most wealthiest nation on earth, can't do that, well, there's got to be something wrong. But we can do that. We just don't have the political will to do that. So there's your framing. There's your framing. Basically, what I mean is that if you're getting all your news from CNN and MSNBC, you're not getting the whole picture on Bernie Sanders. And that's when they even decided to bring him up, which for a long time, they didn't. So finally, with all that said, I haven't always agreed with Ed. Sometimes I've even been critical of him. But at the same time, I think he did a great job this time in shutting down the bullshit narrative from David Brock. Well done, man. Well done.